Hey, everybody, it's
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Chris, and I'll be doing this training tonight. I wanted to just say hi and let you know we're going to be getting started. We'll probably get folks to 5:02, so we have a couple of minutes, but we'll be getting started, and we will be unmuting everybody. There are parts of this call that are designed to be, or parts of the training that are designed to be interactive. And so my ask to you would be that you mute your phone or computer on your end until those parts. But we'll be unmuting folks. If you don't hear anything, you should be able to see my screen now, and we are here and going to get started in 5 minutes, maybe a little less. Hey, everybody, it's 5 o'clock now. We're going to give folks another minute to join, but we'll get started it's 5:01 now. We'll get started at 5:02. We have 11 people on the call, and there were just over 15 that RSVP'd, and so we want to give folks an extra minute or two to join.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Let's go. Let's go ahead and get started. It's 5:02. Thanks everybody for joining. I appreciate it on this wonderful July evening. So a few different things I want to share as we get started. First, this is the Improve Care Now Community Engagement Learning Series, relationship building to support team development. It should be about an hour. And if you signed up or thought this would be something else, you're welcome to stay, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what it was. That's first. Second, I want to share some housekeeping things. We are going to, everybody on the call, or everybody either on the call or on the web, we're going to work to unmute your phones and your microphones. There are lots of parts of this. It's not lovely. 109 degrees. For those of you who didn't see that in the chat box, it's 109 degrees somewhere. Lisa, you are in Vegas? Is that right? Maybe? I might be wrong. Yeah. We're going to unmute your phones. There are many parts of this where interaction will be helpful. Interaction will be helpful, so it's not just 60 minutes of me talking. If that means that we ask that all of you, if you mute your phones or your microphones on your end during not those interactive times. So that's first. Second, there is a chat. You unfortunately cannot see what other people are chatting, which makes interaction more difficult and is something that we're struggling to learn with or struggling to overcome. But I encourage you to use the chat to ask questions and to share things. And at natural pause points, I will make sure to read those out. One of them that I mentioned earlier, Lisa shared that in Las Vegas it's 109 degrees, so it is not lovely there. But those are kind of two housekeeping things. Being interactive is I think going to be important, and we'll get a lot more out of the training. In fact, I think there are people on the call who I'm going to share examples of things, and I may ask that they share if they're willing. So I want to start with some introductions, and I don't think we can go around to everybody. But I want to encourage people to, in the chat box, chat your name, what state and care center you're from, and then why you joined this training today, what you're hoping to learn. And while you're doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about where this training fits in kind of the engagement training series. This is part of our community engagement learning series, and this is the first of 8 modules that will be developed in 2018. Our goal is to develop 8, at least between 6 and 8 a year. The second wave will roll out at some of the second wave will roll out at the next community conference and then be shared in the fall. The goal of each of the trainings is to support team development at the care center level, and each should include new information, local planning, hands-on skills development, and give folks a chance to interact. And there are the first 4 best practices volunteer recruitment presented last week or 2 weeks ago. Snowflake model organizing, that's going to be presented in 2 weeks. It's going to be very exciting. Relationship development to support team growth, which is this one. Story of self, story of us, story of now. How to use personal story to talk about Improve Care Now and build your team. That was presented at the Spring Community Conference, also on the virtual community conference, and will be presented again towards the end of August. Folks, keep typing in the chat box. As soon as I'm done with this slide, I'm going to read all that stuff off. And like I mentioned, the next two coming up, one, how to build an engagement team, part one, snowflake model and team roles. That is kind of the structure behind the type of community organizing that we think is the best fit for engagement teams, and kind of how to figure out what roles are best for your care center. And that's on August 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then story of self, story of us, story of now, how to talk about improved care now to build your team. And that is Wednesday, August 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. We want to make sure to try to do some later in the day to be accommodating folks on the West Coast. The other thing I want to say is that these trainings aren't meant to just be given once and then never thought of again. If you would like them presented to a group of people at your care center in a webinar, or would like to present them yourself at your care center, and would like to have some like train the trainer to talk about best practices for presenting them, or if you want to talk about having somebody, probably myself, come and do the trainings, I would love to have those conversations. My contact information will be at the end. Please feel free to share. So some of the introductions, or some of the people who have shared: Anna Rodriguez, Melissa from Children's in Orange County, hoping to learn how to build an engagement team. Sharon from Rainbow Babies in Cleveland, looking to learn ways to build their team back up. Laura Berry from Levine in Charlotte. She is going to be muted, but maybe will be typing because she has multiple kids with her. Laura Abernathy, QI at Dayton Children's, wanting to be able to encourage other staff to be involved. Lisa from Las Vegas, a small center, but want to learn more about team building. John from Oklahoma, open to whatever we have to say. Jamie from Omaha, after a few months on the job, is ready to get going on team building. Jamie from Phoenix, learn some more tools to get folks involved. Anna, I mentioned before, also, or from Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, building the African community there. And Nicole from Mass General, who is muted but always learns things to take back. And John, I don't know where you're from, but you're excited to hear some new ideas and steal shamelessly. And that's a great segue to the next slide, which is some of our mission in engagement and improved care now. One, we believe as patients and parents as leaders, that the best outcomes come when everybody is working together to improve. All teach, all learn, that there is no monopoly on good ideas, and that everybody has the ability to share the great things that they're doing, and that we all learn faster if we're all sharing those things. And then to steal shamelessly and share seamlessly, not a competition. And like I said, any of the material here, you should feel free to take and share and use, and we'll do everything we can to make that happen. So the agenda for tonight, the importance of relationship building and its role in team building, examples of relationship building in a group setting. I'm going to talk about one-on-ones. We're going to have time to brainstorm and share what ideas you all took away, and then do next steps and close. And the things that it's my hope that you all take away from this session: one, the importance of relationship development and team building; two, characteristics of good relationships; three, examples of how other teams have incorporated relationship building events; and then an action item or two for your care center. So this next slide is meant to, I have come up with 8 steps to building a self-sustaining team. Finding common purpose, build a list, get a list of people you may be interested to be involved. And the third step is build relationships with people on that list, which helps support all the other steps. And so that is what this training is about here tonight. In researching and developing this session, I found this quote organizing, community organizing, is just a fancy word for relationship building. And it struck me as true as somebody who's done community organizing for the past 10 years, that is really the most important piece of it. And so I want to start out and ask, what are some characteristics of good relationships? Just generally speaking, you can type it in the chat box. Some folks might be unmuted, but share, what do you guys think are some characteristics of good relationships? And while you share, I'm gonna take a drink of water. Trust, people genuinely like each other, listening. Alex who's joined us is not divorced. That's true. Though I would say, as a child of divorce, my parents' relationship is a lot better after getting divorced. Constant communication, being able to speak freely and finding proactive solutions, all absolutely. See if I can figure this out. Yep. So I put down some things here. One, good relationships are the backbone of organizing a team. They're built on shared values and expectations. They're strengthened by mutual commitment and transparency. They require constant attention. They're a source of learning and assuming positive intent, which means that you always assume that somebody comes to the table with the best intentions and that you're working together towards the same goals. And John shared integrity, reliability, and humor. Absolutely. So relationships, they're intentional, and they're rooted in shared values. Organizing relationships, but I'm speaking now specifically about organizing relationships, that you can identify values that we share and they bring us together. They're not transactional, meaning you may be asking somebody to join your team, or while on that team, you may ask them to say, hey, can you reach out to parents and invite them to an event? Or, hey, can you help us to build this session or present? You're not asking them for a favor, and it's not something that is they're going to do you a favor, so you'll do them a favor later. You're building a team and bringing people together, and so they're long term. You're coming together around common goals. That's something that I think is really, really important, and I try my hardest to never, when I'm asking people to do things, say, will you do this favor, but to make the case how being involved in it together will be good for the common goal. They're built on mutual commitment. A great example is I committed to do this training tonight. If I didn't show up, that would have an impact on all our relationships. Now that I'm here, it will have an impact on our relationship, hopefully a good one. But relationships can either be strengthened or diminished by outcomes of mutual commitments, and they involve constant attention and work. Whether that be somebody who is very involved in an engagement team and meeting with them regularly and communicating with them regularly, or parents or patients who may not come out to events very frequently, but figuring out a way to keep in touch with them. Maybe it's via newsletter, maybe it's email, and so all of those things are things to keep in mind. Another quote that I love: power comes from our commitment to work together to achieve common purpose, and our commitment is developed through relationships. And Liz shared, yes, the slides will be shared after the call, hopefully tomorrow, but possibly on Monday. And the annotated agenda as well, which has my presenter's notes. I think about 3 types of relationships, and I just wanted to share this as this is less like community organizing theory, but I wanted to share it as an idea of how I see relationships. One, there are person-to-person relationships. So we may work together, and I may develop a relationship with you as a part of a team. There's the relationship a person has to an organization. So you guys have a relationship to your care center and to Improve Care Now. And the same things can the same characteristics of good relationships and things that can damage relationships are true with an organization as they are person to person. And if I'm approaching somebody who doesn't have a great relationship with Improve Care Now, that impacts my ability to develop a person-to-person relationship with them. Vice versa, somebody has a strong personal relationship with me, we may be able to overcome organizational relationship challenges. And then a person's relationship to the goals or success or outcomes of the organization. The more invested somebody is in the goals of the organization, the more likely they are to keep coming back again and again and again, and want to take ownership of helping those things to be accomplished. I'll give an example from my time on political campaigns. Lawn signs. Lawn signs, you may not know this, but lawn signs are an enemy of political campaign organizers. They're an enemy of political campaign organizers because everybody wants one, and the campaign doesn't want to spend money on them because there's a bunch of research that shows that they don't really change votes, right? And you spend a lot of time with people saying, I want a lawn sign. You say, we don't have lawn signs, but hey, you come knock on doors. The thing is, if somebody gets a lawn sign, they're a lot more invested in the outcome and more likely to get involved later because they've like kind of become a part of the team. And that's just a quick example of somebody being tied to the success or goals or outcome of an organization. The other thing I want to share before we start talking about case studies and tactics is a little research that I found while I was developing this. Meeting new people is one of the leading reasons why people get involved in community organizations, why they volunteer. You can see with this specific survey, it was the fourth leading reason why people get involved, to meet new people and make new friends. Good grassroots organizations end up being a place for people to socialize. There's a saying in community organizing, people come for the issue, they stay for the organizer, or they stay for the people that they're with. And it's absolutely true. You can look at some of the other reasons that also involve community or coming together. I felt like there was a need in my community. My family or friends did it. Those type of things. There's another study by the Bureau for Labor Statistics that talks about the top activities that people do when they volunteer, and most of them are socially related. It's mentoring somebody, it's teaching a class, it's doing things that interact with people. And then the last thing I wanted to share on this, and it's not necessarily related to relationship building, but it was a stat that I found, and I just desperately wanted to get it out there. About a quarter, this was a study done by United Health Group in 2013. About a quarter of the people who volunteered in the past 12 months before that survey said that it helps them to manage their chronic illness. And that's something that really jumped out at me, considering the type of work that we're doing. So before we move on, I just presented a lot of information, and I want to pause for a second and see if anybody has any questions. Feel free to type them in the chat box. And we'll try to unmute everybody for a second and give everybody a chance to reply or talk. Questions? Anything you're interested in talking more about? No? Okay. ICN is a great example of building relationships. Absolutely. Alex, I appreciate your I appreciate your vote of support. Thank you. Actually, that is something that's really helpful. You know, when you're in person during trainings, you can kind of read the crowd. Tougher to do that on the web. Okay, so we're going to move forward. I should say this is a section that will have opportunities for interaction, and so get ready on your computers to type things. And Nicole, this is a section where I talk about one of the things that you all do at Mass General, and Alex, I think I talk a little bit about your food trucks. So, but first, I want to start with one-on-ones. One-on-ones are a person-to-person or person to 2 or 3 people way of starting to develop a relationship, and talk a little bit about what they are and then the different types of them. So one, if there's this is kind of what's on the screen now is kind of what you want to accomplish in a one-on-one. Establishing why you're meeting and making sure you're on the same page. Exploring, so like trying to get the person you're with to share, learning about their values, ask questions that help kind of probe and get them to open up, and thinking about, you know, things that may be relevant to your shared purpose, to why you're there together, to what you're working on. You can exchange information like exchange resources like information or support or insight, and then at the end making a commitment to continue your work together. One-on-ones are a foundational piece of community organizing, and if you all have met with me on the phone or in person, we have had a one-on-one. They are, if somebody dropped me in the middle of a city I didn't know, the first thing I would do is try to find people to start meeting with and developing relationships through one-on-ones. And as an example of how important I think they are, I have been with Improved Care now a little under a year. I have had 133 one-on-ones so far, and I feel like I'm behind, like I should be doing more. You may not have time to do a ton of one-on-ones. They take, 20 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. But figuring out a way to work them into the work that you're doing is an important way to develop relationships. And if you don't have it doesn't have to necessarily be you if you are the organizer or leader of an engagement team. You can train somebody else to do. And I'll give a couple of examples when we get to, after I touch on the different types. There are 3 types of one-on-ones. So there are introductory one-on-ones, and those are, you're meeting somebody for a first time, you want to learn about them and their personal story, you want to share the goals and what the organization is trying to achieve and what the strategy is to get there, how they can be a part of that strategy, and then you want to come away with next steps. So what are you asking them to do, to what opportunity do they have to now make a difference in that strategy? There are maintenance or coaching one-on-ones. I don't particularly like them to be referred to as maintenance. I feel like that just sounds old. But those are, you are meeting with somebody who is a part of a team that you're a part of. You may be trying to learn something new from them. Maybe you're working on a project together and need to share information. But they're kind of those regular interactions that you're having with people to keep in touch. And then escalation one-on-ones. Those are specific meetings you're having when there is somebody who is moving from one level of engagement or involvement to the next. Say it's somebody who has been presenting at an IBD night, but you want them to lead the planning of the next one. Or it's somebody who has come out to a couple of events, but you want them to play a bigger role in the team generally. And it's a specific conversation where you talk about the great work that they've been doing, the need that exists, and then ask for a specific commitment. And while I was talking, somebody shared the physician lead does one-on-ones with other providers to review data quarterly, and it's been educational for junior providers. That's fantastic. And that was Laura. Yep, that's a great example of a maintenance or coaching one-on-one. An example of how that I have of this in practice, Cincinnati Children's has, when a new parent or patient signs up or lets folks know that they're interested in joining their parent group, a parent or patient will reach out to them and have a conversation if they get them on the phone. Sometimes it lasts 20 to 25 minutes. Sometimes it's a little longer. Sometimes it's a little shorter. But that's an example of an intro one-on-one. They have a card that shows, that piece of paper that somebody filled out and said, here's what I'm interested in. They're calling to say, here's who I am. Let's talk a little bit about what you're interested in and learn more about it and let you know what we're doing and get any information we can. And so that's an example of it is a group of parents and patients who are holding those one-on-ones. It's not just resting on one person, and they're not an hour or an hour and a half long. They're 20-minute to half an hour conversations, but the person holding the one-on-one and the organization come away knowing more what the person who signed up, what they're interested in doing, and the person who was called ends up knowing more about opportunities to get involved, and hopefully the doors are now open. So before we talk about event examples, I want to share some tips and tricks that I've found for events. This was one of my favorite events. It was at the nonprofit I worked for previously. We were in a children's library, and all these wonderful, incredibly accomplished people were sitting on tiny chairs, and it was fantastic. It was a debrief after one of our larger periods of action. So I'm going to run through these quickly. If you have any more, feel free to put them in the chat box. One, make the invites as personal as you can. Sometimes that means in person, could mean over the phone. A lot of folks won't have capacity to do that, to make phone calls to everybody you want to invite. So over email, a person-to-person email. Or if you don't have capacity to do that, you need to do a group email. Think about who is sending the email. People are more likely to relate. Think about who may be the best person to relate to the people who are on the other end. And that can help develop the relationship between that person and who they're emailing, even if it's a group email, and between the organization and that person. Ask the people who have said yes to attend to play a support role. Maybe that means asking them to help sign people in. Maybe it means asking them to bring water or pens or something that can be helpful. But think about what we talked about, the mutual commitment part of relationships. Them making a commitment makes it more likely for them to show up, and it makes them feel and makes them a contributing member of the team. Confirm the people who have committed to come. It's important that they know that it is important that they're there. And confirming is one way to do that. That can be over the phone. It can be via email, as personal as you can, as capacity allows. Do intros and icebreakers. Even if it's just having people share in the chat box where they're from and why they're on the call. Try to work an intro or icebreaker into every event. They're going to look different in small groups than they will in large groups. And there are lots of different examples of them. I'm happy to share or talk through those. There are whole websites that just have icebreakers. Share with the people who are at the event how that event fits into the broader mission. Think about when we started this call and talked about the community engagement learning series, why they were important, and what other opportunities there are to be involved. The more people understand how it fits into the whole, the more likely they are to get and stay involved. That helps develop the relationship between those people and the organization. Take pictures and share for people who couldn't make it. Ask for feedback, and then if you can, share how that feedback impacted future trainings or future events. Invite them to another event before they leave, and follow up with people who didn't attend. Some people call them calls of shame for people who just didn't attend and committed but didn't come. I think that's a little harsh. The idea is they know it is important that people know that they, part of developing a relationship is that the people who have committed to come to an event or attend an event know that like you have personal stake in them being there, and the organization has a stake in their being there, and they are important. And that follow-up call is a way to do that. If I commit to do something and I don't do it, and nobody follows up with me, that I'm less likely to develop the relationship with that person. A few examples of events, and if any of you are on this call and were part of these and would like to share, type in the chat box so we can make sure you're unmuted. I have two from Mass General. One is Picnic in the Park, where they ask people to bring potluck and have parents and patients come out with clinical staff and just play games and be around each other and get to know each other. The Kindness Rocks project is something that I thought was really, really neat. They paint messages of kindness and hope on rocks, and so a group of patients and parents will get together and do that. And it's the type of activity where you can do and talk and share. And if you think about, people seeing the messages that are on those and talking about why that's the message, it's a great opportunity for people to get to know each other. And then placing those, you place those around the clinic for people to find, helps to develop the relationship of the person, the person who is picking it up and reading it. Stanford and Seattle had cooking classes. For those of you who were at the community conference, you saw a great video from Stanford, and you can just tell cooking together gives you the opportunity to talk and interact and get to know each other. And I think North Carolina, one of the sites in North Carolina is doing one of those at the end of the month. Levine, I believe. Vanderbilt, after their Take Steps walk, invited parents and patients to go get ice cream together, and then the patients went and sat together with one of the coordinators and talked about, what they hoped to see and how they wanted the group to build. The parents sat together and did the same thing. They are going to a trampoline park soon in August. I know in Cincinnati they've got bowling. They have like yearly hockey games together where they don't play. Well, I mean, they may play, but there's the opportunity for members of their group, IB Devoted, to go to their minor league hockey team. And then GI Care for Kids had a scheduled food truck night that was going to invite folks to come out to a food truck festival or court kind of and have a chance to talk and share. But it was rained out. But I think they may try to do it in the future. And a couple of questions, or Laura says yes, it is Levine that is doing the cooking class. And Melissa asks, do facilities use their budget to pay for these events, and do families pay for themselves? So, Alex, do you want to? We'll see if we can. I don't know if you can, if you're unmuted, or do you want to answer the budget question? Okay, Alex, you should be unmuted.
Oh. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. The budget question. What do you guys do in Atlanta? How do you guys deal with that?
Yeah, so the hardest thing, right, as you are probably hearing this and thinking, is the funding aspect of it. And in these situations, we do ask the families to pay for those events. I think in Cincinnati they were doing a little bit of fundraising, and so in those situations when you've done some fundraising as a group, you might be able to subsidize those things. Group rates are really, really useful to, lower and make it more accessible to those families who cannot afford. But for us, at least in Atlanta at GI Care for Kids, we're doing events that the families can go to and pay themselves, like the food truck aspect. They pay for their own food, and then you share the fellowship piece, because unfortunately, like everyone knows, the funding piece can be a bit hard.
Wonderful, thank you. A couple other things. Laura shared their families are not paying flour power, flour like the baking thing, the grain. I'm not good at cooking. Not the flour plant. Anyway, they're donating their space, and they're doing it, they think, to help get their name out. Mass General picnic was bring your own picnic, and Nicole and Jill brought some games, balls, hula hoops, things that they had around. And at the second one, one of the people who fishes brought fish poles and bait, and they did some fishing. UCSF, they're hosting a US that's in San Francisco. They're hosting a Mind, Body, and IBD Day, which I've heard about from a couple of folks who are organizing it. It's a really neat idea. And the presenters are massage therapists and yoga classes. I infer from that they may be donating their time, but Liz, if that's wrong, let me type it in the chat box. I know Vanderbilt, the ice cream, it was after the Take Steps walk, and so they just kind of went and got ice cream together, and the families paid for their own ice cream. And then the trampoline park, they are asking for people to pay. I mean, some of the parents may do trampoline, but I think the idea is that the kids will go and or the patients will go and do trampoline, and the parents will sit together and talk. Any other questions on that, or any other events that you do at your centers that you would like to share that you think kind of fit into this? The idea of events is that people hold specific events that are designed to help foster and build relationships. In tips and tricks, we talked about things that can be done at every event that can help foster and build relationships. But there's also the having occasional specific events to help build relationships. This is something that I wasn't good at when I started as an organizer. I just was all about let's do the events that help us to meet our goals, and let's do trainings and things like that. Had to be, it was something I had to learn over time, that doing things we would do watch parties, or getting together at a local restaurant and just sharing and talking, or things like that are as important to the team coming together as the other type of event. So now is the time where we can brainstorm and share. And so I guess here are the questions I have. We talked about a lot. Are there pieces you want to go back and review and talk about more, or places that you have questions about? Two, after hearing this, are there things that you think of that you're already doing to support relationship development that you'd like to share? And then three, do you have any new ideas that you want to share? Like, after being a part of this training, what are you thinking, and what support do you need to do it? And like, what do you want to take back and try? So I'm gonna pause for a second. I'm gonna take another drink of water, and feel free to chat in the chat. If you'd like to talk and aren't unmuted, or think you're not unmuted, feel free to chat in the chat, and I can make sure you're unmuted. But we have a few minutes to just share and talk and brainstorm and ask questions and things like that. Laura says she's definitely going to share this info at her next parent meeting. It's wonderful. I'll throw another question in there. Lisa says it's difficult at their center because it's a small couple of doctors. Doesn't really know how to get patients and parents involved because there are too few patients and parents. And like phrase that as a question, who's the prime mover for these events? Okay, so a couple of different questions. I'm going to start, John. I cannot say doctor, apparently, so I'm just going to say John. Does anybody want to share, or can, I'll read the question and then give my opinion, and if I see other people share. The question is, who are the primary movers for these events? Are they patients, parents, or center staff? So if you've held these events and want to type in and share, it is my impression that it depends on the center, and it can be all of them, and that Lisa says her parents are very involved. She writes in generally. Alex says all the stakeholders. Lori says it can be all and any. I have seen it originate at lots of different places or lots of different points. I think that what is most common is a parent or patient, and it could be either, though I mostly see parents, and a staff member who come together to work together to plan something, and having that partnership doesn't leave it all on one person. It also gets like kind of a good idea of what may be helpful. That's not a definitive answer. Nicole said that the Picnic and Rocks were just parents, but they just parents were at the event, but at the event all the groups take part. So I think what Nicole you're saying is that it's the parents who planned it, but everybody was invited. So that's, I guess that's a start, John. I hope that was responsive. I'm going to go on to some of the other questions. Lisa, you said, you do engagement nights, nobody shows up. concerned about the size of the center, maybe a longer conversation. And I'd love to schedule time to talk. We have one-on-one. So I think that centers are at different places for where they are in organizing or like where their teams are. And it's sometimes tough to, it may be that the most important thing that y'all can do right now is to figure out a way to find other patients and parents that are interested in being involved. If you don't have a list of people who are interested, it's tough to get people to come out and do things. And there are lots of ways to build that. If you go back to, I'm gonna try to get back to this slide. There we go. So the like building a self-sustaining team. Number 2 is to build a list or to find a group of people who are interested in being involved. And if those systems aren't, if you haven't thought about those things or put those systems in place, it may be difficult to get people to come out to events. It's one of the reasons why, when I talked about landing in a new place where I didn't know anybody, why I would start doing, why I would start doing one-on-ones as opposed to group events, because I need to get a group of 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 people who I know would be interested to get involved. And there are some centers that are doing testing on how to opt people in or get them involved. And so we have some data and some information on ways to do that. Lisa, I'll shoot you an email. Any other feedback on that from other centers on like where to start, or if you've tried a couple things, haven't had a lot of folks show up, or don't have a big group of people to come out to things yet, things that have worked. I know I've talked to some other centers who have that, like that is not an uncommon thing. And the other thing I should say, when I was starting out, somebody told me a story, and so I'm going to tell it. I'm going to leave out like who the people are, because people have strong opinions on some of those people. So there's a community organizer, and he was working and wanted to get folks together to talk to their city officials and to community leaders about the fact that there were plants that were closing, they were losing jobs, and figuring out what they can do about it. And so he spent weeks passing out flyers and going to community organizations, getting ready to have a big event, and got a church that was willing to host, and set up 50 chairs, passed out hundreds of flyers. So he's sure 50 people were going to come, and 3 people showed up, and they were 3 wonderful elderly ladies who showed up to the church. And he said, "Hey, it's great that you came out to this event." And they said, "Oh, this isn't bingo." Oh, that's sad. And so just an example of like, there are always events where like you're gonna have an event and you're gonna do everything you can, and people may not just may not show up, and it takes some time to build that momentum. Every time I have an event, I get nervous beforehand, every single time, because I wonder if people will show up. Having 13 people on this call is that, I think we were up at 15 at one point, is amazing, right? And because of that. Laura is sharing something. They're trying to have people get involved. They have a letter and have recently made cards that they're given to families when they come in, and they also have a email address and a Google Voice number that people can call and leave messages and can text. That's listed on the cards. Thank you for sharing, Laura. That's great. And like, there are different ways. So there's the idea of like, you're going to give somebody something when they come in, and then they're going to reach back out. And then there's, when they come in, you're going to collect their information and then reach back out to them. And just figuring out different ways to do that. I think that Mass General is testing doing that at an infusion center. I believe Vermont is going to start a test of doing that soon in the next couple of weeks. Atlanta and Cincinnati Children's are testing using follow-up cards. There are lots of different ways that you can do that. And so I'd be happy. We have like workflow processes to like know different ways that people are doing those and how it's working. Other questions or things? Can anybody share something that you may do from here, like after being on this call, that like you have an idea of an event or something that you want to do? And I'm going to go back and make sure I didn't miss any questions while you're thinking about that. Laura Abernathy said, getting nurses more interested in participating in population management meetings. I don't think that wasn't a question. I think that was just something that you were talking about wanting to do. Also, Sarah shared saying this information at the next parent meeting. Nicole's going to do an icebreaker. Nicole, I'm going to look for the icebreaker website and see if I can send that to you tonight. And I'll also include it in the test sending text via Google Voice. Alex, yeah, I know we've talked about text messages, so ongoing conversation. Anna said make an ICN presence at their monthly IBD support group. Anna, if you need any resources for that, my contact information is going to be on here. Please reach out. The other thing I'll say before I go on to next steps, one thing that we globally, Improve Care Now engagement, are trying to do is figure out ways that we can be supportive to centers. So that if you're a center that only has a few people involved or doesn't have a ton of capacity to support engagement, parent-patient engagement, that you can send people to things like this. They can get training and then come back with information and skills to help add that capacity. And that's why we're doing these trainings. We're going to continue to do them. It's why, if you have a parent group and you want them to get this training, reach out and or this or any of the others, and we can figure out a time to do that, or a way to do that. We've also started doing new patient or parent orientations. We have our second one tonight at 9. And Michelle, I don't know if you're still on, but if you are and you want to share anything about the orientations, that's the last one we have on the calendar, but I'm sure we'll get more on and share that information. We understand that time is a valuable resource. We understand that even if somebody thinks that parent-patient engagement is one of the top priorities, that they just may not have the capacity to support that, and we want to help foster that. Can be through trainings like that, or a lot of folks get their start with the parent or patient working groups, or parent working group or patient advisory council, and they get involved on the national level, and then start to hear ideas and learn from the other people and bring those things back to the care center, and are more ready to lead development of an engagement team. Okay. I've had a lot of fun. I hope you have too. So I want to share some next steps. One, my name is Chris, and some people call me Christian because that's what's in my email. That's fine. It's a great name, and that's my email address. Christian.keck@cchmc.org. I'm going to leave this up for a second. Like I said, you will all get this information sent to you, but it's not going to be tonight because I have to run. Literally, I have to run, and then I have to do a orientation with Michelle. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Monday. Those things will be emailed to you along with an evaluation, and to that end. I also have a one-on-one tonight in about 15 minutes. To that end, the evaluation is important. This is the first time we're doing this training for a group. We want to hear your input and make adjustments. Future trainings and events can be found at improvedcarenow.org/events. Also, we're testing out putting local events on improvedcarenow.org/events. And if that's something you're interested in, you should reach out. We can talk about it. GI Care for Kids in Atlanta has tested that out. And then the two of these trainings that are coming up: How to Build an Engagement Team Part 1, Snowflake Model and Team Roles on Thursday, August 9th at 2 p.m. And Story of Self, Story of Us, Story of Now, How to Talk About Improved Care Now to Build Your Engagement Team, Wednesday, August 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. I am really excited about How to Build an Engagement Team Part 1. I'm excited about both of them, but that one hasn't been shown publicly at all. We tested it out with a small, one center, but was actually, I worked on it and was developed by one of the Patient Advisory Council's task force chairs, and she did a lot of work on it, and I think it's a great training, and if you want to start to conceptualize how to structure a team and team roles and things like that, perfect training. It's a little longer. It's an hour and 15 minutes because there's a little more content to it. But 2 p.m. and all of these will be recorded and we can send them out. So that's all I have. I do want to. There's a citations page here that will be in there. We don't have to go over it, but I do want to acknowledge that some of this much of this content wasn't originally created by me. There are charts and stuff that are cited here. So anything anybody else would like to share or talk about before we go? No? Okay. It's been a lot of fun, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know I had a good time. And so thank you. If I know Nicole and Lisa, I'll be reaching out before 6:30. Lisa, I think that's before 3:30 your time. And everybody else, feel free to email me anytime. Engagement, supporting care center engagement is what I do. So, but at the latest, you should get an email with this information plus the annotated agenda by Monday, end of day, and the evaluation. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great night. Try to stay cool if you're in a place that's 109 degrees, because that's bananas.